Good morning, everyone. Let's get to today's work. Let me share my screen. Today we're just going to learn about three things. We are going to learn conditions, Python conditions. We are going also to check through loops, and lastly we are going to uh, learn about Python functions. So without wasting much time, let's just get into Python conditions, whereby we are just going to start with if statements. So in Python, we use the usual logical conditions for mathematics, such as there is equals, there is not equal, there is less than, there is less than or equal to. I think most of you are much familiar with less than or equal to. There is the greater than sign, and there is greater than or equal to. These conditions can be used in several ways. Most commonly in if statement and loops. So to start with, we can just have an example of an if statement. So an if statement is written using the keyword if, and therefore you can just you can just copy this. Let's just insert a cell here on the top. You can just comment about this. Let's comment about all these codes so that you can start fresh. So this is our if statement. Let's just uncomment it. You can just have a comment here. Oops. If statement. We usually you have to initialize your variables. That is, we will have variables a and b. So variable a will take 33, and the variable b will be 200. So we write our expression here using the if. Actually, this is our condition. So if b is greater than a, then we can just print out that we can just have a printout. So let's print that that b is greater than a. We can run through this code. We can run our code, and you can just see our output here, that A. So you can have that is how we implement our if statement. We first of all have your variables here, and then you just write your condition using the if keyword. And then you just after the condition is met, you print out something. So this is just simply the explanation. So we are told that we use two variables A and B, which are used as part of the if statement to test whether B is greater than A. And A is 33 and 200, B is 200. We know that 200 is greater than 33, and therefore we will just print that B is greater than A, as we have just seen. We can have the else statement. The else keyword is in Python. The else that that is to mean else uh, if the previous maybe condition were not true, uh, then we try this condition. We can just simply add an if statement here in our code, and this is how we add it. So you use the keyword if. Let's say if B is equal to A, you can just have a print out that A is equal to B. So we can simply change this value so that we can assign it to that 3, and we see which statement will be print out. So let's run our code. Oops, we have of course, yeah, we have a supposed to be L if you can now just run through the code, and we can see this part of block is printed out that A is equal to B. We can have as many as L ifs as we want. We can have another L if statement. Let's say if now B is less than A, we can just have a print. Let's print something here. We say that A is greater than B. We can just add a value here, and then we see which statement will print. We can just as you can see here is that A is greater than B now, meaning that this is the conditions. This is the condition that is executed simply because that B is less than A. this is how conditions do work, and how these if statement work is that always execute the first conditions to check if it is true, and if it is not true, it goes to the else part, and if the first else part is not true, then it goes to to the other else part. So if these conditions are not true, we usually have an else an else an else block. uh, in this block you can just print out that no match is found. If all these conditions are just uh, executed and none of them is true, the code executes the else part. So let's say uh, if we had let's say maybe this one to be empty, let's say an empty string, we can just try to run that and see what will be our output here. Oh, we have an error here because we are just trying to compare a string and an integer. So we can just use a number here. Uh, let's just comment out uh, one part here so that we can let's just comment out this part so that we can see if it will execute the else part. If b is greater than a, that is false, so it won't execute this one. And if we have if b is equals to a, that also will not execute, and the else part will now should be executed. So let's just see that, and you can see from our program that no match is found. So if any of you guys have a question, you can just post it in the in call messages. uh, So I think we can just continue. We can just good. We can just continue. That is all about the if and elif and else condition statements. So you can see, in fact, I have another example here. For the elif keyword, you can just check through it, but basically this is what we have just learned is what is implemented here. We start off by having some variables, and then we have a condition here. If b is greater than a, this condition will be executed, and then we check the else if a is equals to b, then this condition will be printed out. So in our case here, a is equals to b, and this condition will be printed out. This is just an explanation that a is equal to b, so first condition is not true, but the if condition is true. So we print to the screen that a and b are equal. We can just go to the other part. You can just go through the other examples now that uses an else, whereby we are saying that in this example A is greater than b, so the first condition is not true, and also the else if condition is not true, so we go to the else condition and print to the screen that a is greater than b. You can also have an else without an else if. This is quite a good example for that case. You can see here we don't have an else if statement, an else if statement. So we just have an if, and then if the if part is not true, then we just execute the else condition. These are just simple concepts that I don't think we are just hard to comprehend. So having gone all those examples, I think we're just going to get into Python loops. And Python loops, we usually have two primitive loop commands. And we have while loops, and then we have for loops. You're just going to start with while loops. With the while loop, we can execute a set of statements as long as a condition is true. So let's try this with an example. We can just copy this sample code here, and let's just place it in a cell here so that you can just execute. Let me just go through the code and then we just run it. So we just initialize a variable here with 1, that is our variable I, and then we check when I is less than 6, we print the I, and then we just assign a plus 1 to, to the I. This will keep executing until I is not less than 6. Uh, we can just try to execute that and see that we will keep printing numbers until now I plus 1 is no longer equal, is no longer less than 6. So for the case of we start with the initial value of I, which is 1, and then the second print will be I plus 1, which will be 2. The other, we keep we keep adding 1 until this condition will be false. So when we take now 5 plus 1, you'll notice that it will be a 6, and 6 is not less than 6. So that's why the code stop executing at 5. So again, that is it with our while loop. You can just print anything here. It doesn't mean it is necessary that you must print I, but you can just print certain statements. Let's say hello world. You can just print these 5 times, uh, and this is the printout hello world 5 times. You can light any logic, any logic in between your, just below your while loop, any logic that you want to execute, any logic that you want to execute will be written just below the while loop. And you can notice that anything that you want to be executed, uh, as long as the whole condition is true, it's just written, it has an indent. So you can notice that we have an indent between the print function and the while condition. There is an indent here. So if you happen to miss out the indent, it means that you're not going to get the right output. So all the statements that you want them to execute, you just press them below the while loop, and they must be indented. So that is all about while loop. You can, if you have any question, you can just write it in the comment section. I think I will answer it later. Um, so we can just go through this. The while loop. With the while loop, we can execute a set of statements as long as the condition is true. And we have seen that we'll keep printing numbers as long as this condition is true. So we keep printing the value of I until this condition is not true. In fact, it is saying that we print I as long as I is less than 6. There is a break statement. With the break statement, we can stop the loop even if the whole condition is true. Uh, A break is a keyword that will be used to stop a while loop, even if the condition is true. But again, that one we have to use an if statement. We can have this logic here. Let's try to modify our code a little bit. Can just print I, then we can just introduce our if statement here. So we are saying that if I is equals to 3, then we have to break this code. So we will keep executing this until we have I is equals to 3, and then we have a break. We can just run this and see the magic in it. So after we get I is equals to 3, that is when we stop. That is when we stop like executing this code. So this is we utilize the keyword break. You can also stop executing code. Let's have another example here. At 5. So the code will keep executing until I is equal to 5. You can just run this, or maybe let's just use 2. You can run this, and then we see that we keep executing this code until I is equals to 2. I think that's good. That is how we combine now while and if. That is it. The break statement, I think we have used that, and then I would like us to go direct to for loops. I have a document that I would like us to go through here. Um, I would like us to go through the flow chart for loop, and we can just go through the components of for loop. The for loop consists of the following components. We have the initialization. This is the component which is used to initialize, used for initialization of the counter variable, which is used to control the loop. This statement is only executed once. And we have the condition part. It is a Boolean expression which is evaluated before each iteration for the loop. If the Boolean expression is true, then the loop body will just be executed. We have the update part. This statement is executed after each iteration of the loop. The statement updates the counter variable or other values that I think we have a typo here. That are present in the loop. So you can just get into the for loop flowchart. We have the starting point. now we just check if condition is true or false. If it is false, then we'll just have to end the program. And if it's true, we will execute some statements, then update update our counter variable here. Um, uh, 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 um, let's just check what these symbols mean. We have the upper shape. These present the start and the end points of a loop. We have the parallelogram shape represent input or output of the processing operations. This is the parallelogram. It is used to present input and outputs. We have the diamond condition here. This is the decision point where the program must evaluate a Boolean expression at this point. And then we have the rectangle part or shape. Uh, the rectangle shape represents the application statement. So we can have an example. This flowchart for printing all the elements present in an array. So initially we have to initialize our array here, and then we must have an index of I referring to the first numbers index in the list, and then we just have to start. So the condition states that does index I exceed the list length. If yes, we end that program. If no, then we must print. We have to print all the values, and then we just keep updating the index I by adding 1 to it. I think that is so we are saying that the flowchart starts with an initialization step where the counter variable is set to 0. The program then evaluates the condition whether the counter variable is less or equal to the length of array. Since the counter variable is currently at 0, initially we started at 0. The condition is true, the program enters the loop body. So within the loop body, the program executes the code to be executed. In this case, the program outputs the value of the element present at the location which is currently 0 to console. The program updates the counter variable by adding it to 1. The program then returns to the beginning of the loop again, and it evaluates that condition again. Since the counter variable is now 1, the condition is still true, and the program executes the loop body again. The process continues, will continue until we reach 5, and that is when we'll now have to, the condition will not be true. I mean the condition becomes false as the program exits. So that is simply that. I think we can just have, here is the code. We have a list of numbers here. within an array, and then we have our for loop here. So for I in numbers, this is a variable. You just say that for each number in this array, we just have to print that number. I think that is that. We can just get into our anaconda here. So that is that. Uh, a for loop is used for iterating over a sequence. So a sequence in this case can be a list, a tuple, dictionary, or a set, or maybe a string, and you can also have arrays. So this is less like uh, the for keyword in another programming languages. It works more likely as an iterator method as found in other object-oriented programming languages. So by the way, for your information, Python is an object-oriented programming. So for those who will maybe take advanced Python, you will get to know what is object-oriented programming. With the for loop, we can execute a set of statements once for each item in a list or a tuple. I think we have another example here where we just have a list of fruits and then we iterate through the fruits and then we print. You can execute this one in your anaconda, insert it into a cell here, and now we paste it. Just run, execute, and then you will just see that we are just looping through all the elements in this list. So for eggs in fruits, and then we have to print that fruit. This just means for any fruit in our list, we just print that fruit. That is simply that. I don't think I have another explanation for that. And that continues for any other example that I've given here. I think that is that with for loop. You can just note a slight difference between while loop and for loop. While loop is used to when we want the code to run a specific number of times when a certain condition is true, and for loop is just for a for loop is used for iterating through items in a list or a tuple or maybe a dictionary or maybe an array. So you can note the difference. While loop is used to execute when we have when we like have a defined number of when we like have a certain we have a certain condition that must be true so that the code keeps running and running. But for loop is just an iteration. We are just iterating through items. I think that is that with the loops. We can just get to our last part about Python's that is functions in Python programming language, and we can just maybe start by asking ourselves what is a function. A function is a block of code which only runs when it is called or maybe invoked. So most of you maybe haven't heard about calling a function or maybe invoking a function, but by the end of this we will know these. We can just continue. You can pass data, also known as parameters, into a function. We will see that, and a function can return data as a result. These are just some of characteristics of a function. Let's begin by creating a function. In fact, I think we have been using these print. This is a function, an inbuilt function for Python programming. But today I want us to check about user-defined function. So how we define a function is by, let's just have another cell here. Let me just write the syntax here. We have syntax, sorry, syntax. Use the def keyword, then function name, then we have the parentheses, then we have a full colon, then below we can have statements that we want to execute. This is the structure of a function, or rather the syntax. We must use the def keyword, then the name of the function based on what you want to do, and then all the statements that you want to execute. We can have an example here. Example. Let's have an example here. So we can have def let's say adding, then we can just have, let's have our a is equals to 12 and our b is equals to 13. Then we want to carry out some of stuff is equals to a plus b. And then we just print out the sum. Sum underscore, and you will notice that when we run this program, we will not get the output. We have no output here. We will only execute this function after we have called it. So we can just call this function. This is how we call function. Invoke a function. So this is how we do it. So we just have to write the name of the function, and then we put a parenthesis. this way now we have called that function. You can just try to execute this, and you can see that we have our value here, that our sum is 25. This is how to define a function. Uh, we can add some parameters to this function if we have just seen. Let's say we have parameters a and b. You can just have now to delete these, and then we pass these values here, 12 and 13 and 14, or we can just use 13. And then when we run this, you'll notice that we will get the same output as before, 25. You can also change this value. You can call this function as many times as you want with the different values. Let's just call this function in another. We can just run this, and now we see that we have 134 here, because 122 plus 13 is 134. So this is how we use function, and these are called the function arguments, and we always pass. If we have two number of arguments here, we will need to add exactly or equal number of arguments when calling that function. In fact, if we call just one, we call the function with one argument, we will get an error. Yeah, adding missing one requirement position argument B, simply because we didn't we are calling our function here with one argument, or maybe a parameter. They are also called parameters. I think that is all about functions. Again, you can have you can execute a lot of statements in between these functions, and then just call that function. I think that is all for today's class. I don't think we have any other thing to cover, only that you should now practice more on functions, loops, and if statements. If you have a question, you can just pose it at the comment section, and then I'll get back to you. So, having covered our today's content, we'll just have to close this session, and goodbye, and thank you for listening to me. Have a good